Law helpers.
Hi guys, today in this video 4 of the Memorize series or 5-minute video series, we are looking into the fundamental rights and the constitutional amendments so far amended the fundamental rights are the part 3 of the Indian Constitution. So, as I said, the fundamental rights are provided under part 3 of the Indian Constitution and the articles under this part 3 is article 12 to 35. So for the UGC point of view, you have to be clear and thorough with the part 3, part 4 and part 4a of the constitution, that is the fundamental rights, DPSP and the fundamental duties. From this, whereby you can expect one question in the examination, not only for the UGC net purpose, for whatever exam, law exam, there will be a question from this part 3. So you have to be thorough about this. In the fundamental rights, under this part 3, there are 6 rights which is identified. The first right is right to equality, which is provided under Article 14 to 18. Right to freedom, Article 19 to 22. Right against exploitation, 23 and 24. Right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. Right to cultural and educational rights, Article 29 and 30. Right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. So this may be coming in the match, so you have to thorough with the articles and the rights. Okay, then coming to the amendment, if an amendment is going to be made in the fundamental rights, it is a constitutional amendment and it has to be passed by a special majority, that is by a majority of not less than two-thirds of the members of that house present and voting. So you have to remember special majority. And what is special majority? It is by majority of not less than two-thirds of the members of that house present and voting. Then we shall look into the articles along with the short title. So as a law student, we will be having a prior understanding of about these fundamental rights, but for the exam point of view, the two concentrated on the UGC net purpose, what is required is you need to know the article along with the short title alone. No need to dive into the article and analyze about it in deeper. So we'll brush up these articles, and at the end we shall see the constitutional amendments, which is also asked many times in the match. Okay, so the first article is article 12. The definition of state has been given, and in the article 13, laws inconsistent with the fundamental rights is said to be void, right? Then coming to the first right recognized under the part 3 is the right to equality, for from article 14 to 18. Okay, so for first article is article 14, concentrate on these words: state shall not deny any person equality before law or equal protection of law. Remember that. And article 15 is about right against discrimination. So the state shall not discriminate any citizen on the grounds of, remember these grounds, they may give some grounds and ask you to identify the odd one out. Okay, so on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Okay, so RRCSP, remember the first words. And then the article 16 is about the equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters of employment or appointment to any office under the state. So right to discrimination in a general sense is provided under article 15, and in the sense of employment and appointment is provided under article 16. And 17 is about the abolition of untouchability, and 18 is about the abolition of titles except military and academic distinction. So the next article is article 19. All citizens have six right to freedom, that is provided under article 19. And for the exam point of view, you have to study the six rights in a chronological order as provided under the Bar Act. Okay, only then you can answer the match question which will be asked in a question paper. So for A, you remember by a you open your mouth and speak and you express yourself. For a you remember speech and expression. Then for b, remember bees assemble around a flower for getting honey, right? So to assemble peacefully, and you cannot attack those bees without arms. So without arms also remember, and without arms. Okay. Then for C you remember cooperative societies. That is, cooperative society is association or a union. So remember cooperative society, association, union. And for D you remember, like you are driving to a distant place, okay, to move freely throughout the territory of India. Drive, D. Okay. And you are driving to a distant place and you are ending the drive in a place, so that is ending. And you are establishing a home or something. Okay. So to that ending places to reside and settle in any part of the territory of India. Okay. D, E is somewhat connected. And also G, in the place where you have ended the stay and you are residing, you need some gains for living, right? So for gains you remember G, and that gains are by practice of any profession or by carrying on any occupation, trade or business. Okay. So this chronological order may be coming for the examination, since it is asked in so many times in the examination. So remember this short clues and the chronological order properly. Okay. And also, along with this article 19 clause 1, there are some reasonable restrictions provided under other articles. For A, that is, the reasonable restriction is provided under 19 clause 2, and under 19 clause 3 for B, and 19 clause 4 is for C, and 19 clause 5 is for D, E and F. Under F there is actually the freedom to own property, but it was later repealed, and it is given under the constitutional amendment under article 300A. So prior to the repeal, this also, the reasonable restriction for F is also under this article 19 clause 5. Okay. Then article 19 clause 6 is the reasonable restriction for G clause. Then moving on to the article 20, it also provided three types of rights. The first one is that ex post facto law. It says that no person shall be convicted of any offence except for the law which is force in India. That is, if a person has committed an offence today and the law for a law saying that it is a crime came only tomorrow, he cannot be held liable under the new law. Okay. Only if there is a law which says that is an offence on the particular day on which he committed the offence, then only it can be said to be the crime. Okay. Crime, and he shall be punished under that law. That is what ex post facto law says. And the other aspect of the ex post facto law is that in case a person has committed an offence today and the penalty for such offence has been increased tomorrow, he cannot be imposed with the penalty which came by the law that came later. Okay. He can be imposed with the penalty for that day alone. Okay. Then the second right is double jeopardy. That says that no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offence more than once. That is, no person can be punished for an offence more than once. Okay. Then self incrimination. It says that no person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. That is self incrimination. Okay. This also you have to remember by the clauses. The first one is ex post facto law. For 2 you can easily remember double jeopardy, and 3 is self incrimination. Moving on to the next slide. Article 21, that is easy, everybody knows this, a right to life and personal liberty of any person shall not be deprived except according to the procedure established by law. Remember life and personal liberty. And article 21A, very easy, free and compulsory education for children between, remember this, what is the age limit? That is 6 to 14. Everybody should be given free and compulsory education. Then Article 22, you can remember this by keeping a word, that is preventive detention laws. Okay, the first one is that it says that no person shall be arrested without giving him the grounds on which he was arrested. And also they have said that right to consult, he have the right to consult and get defended by a legal practitioner of his choice. Then second one says that no person arrested shall be kept with the police himself. He should be remanded, produced before the nearest magistrate within 24 hours of arrest. And then it says that these rights are not applicable to the enemy alien, also to the the person who has been arrested under the preventive detention laws. And this 4, 5, 6, 7 etc speaks about this preventive detention. And I think that no question will be coming from this part. And so we are moving on to the next right against exploitation. Article 24. The first right is Article 24 says that no person should be involved in human trafficking or forced labor. And Article 24 says that no children below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in a factory or a mine or engaged in any other hazardous places. So they remember the age, that is below 14 age. But the below 14 age can be involved in some employment, but it should not be employment in a factory, mine, or in any hazardous places. That is to be remembered. And then moving on to the next right to freedom of religion. Article 25 to 28 speaks of this religious right. The Article 25 says that all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and right to freely profess, practice and propagate their religion. Then Article 26, that says that every religious denomination or any section shall have the right to establish and maintain institution for religious and charitable purposes. So for their religious and charitable purposes, this religious denomination can establish it. Okay, they have that right. And they also have the right to manage its own affairs. And they can also for that purpose own and acquire movable as well as immovable property. And they have the right to administer such movable or immovable property in accordance with law. Then Article 27 is about tax on these religious institutions. So no person shall be compelled to pay any taxes for the payment appropriated for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion or religious denomination. So in case for the promotion of the religion or religious denomination some amount is paid, it is tax free. That is what Article 27 says. And then 28 says that no religious instruction shall be provided in any education institution wholly maintained out of the state fund. So in case the state, like government colleges or schools, there no religious instruction should be provided. And the second one is this shall not be applicable to a educational institution which is administered by state but established under any endowment or trust which requires religious instructions to be imparted in such institution. That is, in case there is a religious institution which uh, which is administered by the state but established under a endowment, that may be a religious endowment or maybe a religious trust. So there you cannot say that religious instruction should not be given. So this is an exception to Article 28. And then no person is required to take part in religious instruction or religious worship imparted in educational institution recognized by state or receiving aid out of state fund unless consulted to. So no person can be compelled to take part in a religious instruction in the educational institution which is recognized by state, or in case it is receiving aid out of the state fund, then it comes under the state control. No, the educational institution under the state. So there no person should be compelled to take part in a religious instruction. That is what Article 28 says. Then the next cultural and educational rights. So article 29 and 30 speaks about the cultural and educational rights. 29 is about if citizens having some distinct language, script or culture, they also have the right to conserve the same. That is what 29 says. And article 30 says all the minorities have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. So this minority may be a linguistic minority or religious minority. Then article 31, it was actually repealed, so leave that. And coming to the next title, that is saving of certain laws. This title itself was inserted by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment 1976. Under this title there are 4 articles originally, but the last article was repealed. So now article 31A, B and C is there. 31A was actually inserted by the first constitutional amendment, and 31B is also by the same first constitutional amendment. Remember that first. And then coming to the article 31A, the first clause, there are actually 2 clauses. The first clause was earlier brought by the first constitutional amendment, but it was later substituted with some other words by the fourth constitutional amendment 1955. Remember that. And it also have a proviso clause, and second proviso clause was inserted by the 17th constitutional amendment 1964, which is about acquisition of land which is used for personal cultivation, which says that in case government acquired some land which is used for personal cultivation, it should be compensated with same like the market value. That is what stated in this second proviso, which was added by the 17th constitutional amendment. So up to this, remember the title 42nd constitutional amendment, 31A brought by first constitutional amendment, and this first clause was substituted by the fourth constitutional amendment, and second proviso was added by the 17th constitutional amendment. Then coming to the second clause, the expression estate and rights were explained. So this was also substituted by the 17th constitutional amendment. So remember article 31A, there are 3 constitutional amendments taking in part. And then coming to 31B, as I said earlier, along with 31A, in the first constitutional amendment itself, this article was brought, that is validation of certain acts and regulations. And then 31C was actually brought very later by the 25th constitutional amendment 1971, which says that saving of laws giving effect to certain directive principles. So this is what means that certain directive principles will override the fundamental rights. This is what provided under this article. For that, certain directive principles earlier means only the article 39B and C, but later by the constitutional amendment, 42nd constitutional amendment, this article 39B and C was changed to part 4, that is all the directive principles of the state policy. So in case there are fundamental rights and directive principles, there should be a balance. Okay, that is what said in this article. Then 31D, it was actually repealed, so there is no need to study this. Then coming to the right to constitutional remedies, everybody know article 32, there are 5 types of writ, and this is for the enforcement of rights which are provided under this part 3, the fundamental rights. Then coming to the main theme of the video, amendments. Amendments so far involved in the fundamental rights. So the first constitutional amendment, Article 15 clause 4 was inserted. That is, it gave the state some powers to make special provisions with related to the socially and educationally backward class or the scheduled caste or scheduled tribes. Okay, 15 clause 4. Then again in article 19 certain changes were made. In article 19 clause 2, there were some other clause earlier, but it was substituted with the present clause in first constitutional amendment. Also in article 19 clause 2, two exceptions were added. The first, that 19 clause 6 is actually the reasonable restriction for the 19 clause 1 clause G, that is the right to practice a profession or carry on trade, business, etc. So for that, two exceptions were newly added by this first constitutional amendment. The first one is that the state may require technical or educational professional qualifications to carry on some trade or to practice some profession. Okay, that is the first exception. The second one is that in case state is carrying on such business or trade, it shall have the right to exclude any citizen from carrying on such profession, sorry, such business. Okay, then coming to the seventh constitutional amendment, article 16 clause 3 is, in article 16 clause 3 the words were substituted. Actually earlier there were some other words, but it is substituted by the word office under the government or any local authority or other authority within a state or union territory. Any requirement as to the residence within that state or union territory were substituted. Okay, so it basically requires that in case of employment, the government can say that this particular resident is needed for this job. For example, in case the job is in Gujarat, and it can ask the person who is the resident of Gujarat must be writing this examination and get appointed in this post. That is what this article 16 clause 3 the words were added. Then coming to the 16th constitutional amendment, in article 19 clause 2, 3 and 4, that is the reasonable restrictions in case of right to freedom to speech and expression. This is for B, that is peaceful assembly, and this is for A, B, and this is C, to form union, cooperative societies, etc. So in that, as a reasonable restriction, the sovereignty and integrity is also included by this 16th constitutional amendment. Then coming to the 17th constitutional amendment, we have already dealt with it in the savings of certain laws, so leave it. Then 24th constitution amendment, article 13 clause 4 was inserted. Already we have seen that article 13 says in case some laws are inconsistent with the fundamental rights, that laws are held to be void. But it says that in case an amendment is brought under article 368, article 13 will not apply to that. Okay, then coming to 42nd constitutional amendment, we have already seen the title saving of certain laws were added by this amendment. Then coming to the very important amendment, 44th constitutional amendment, article 31 was repealed and 19 clause 1 subclause F was also repealed, that is deleted. Then article 300A was inserted. Apart from these are the major changes, and apart from this, in article 19 clause 5 the subclause F was removed because 19(1)F is already deleted, so in this article also F is removed. Then it has also inserted article 1A, which says that amount fixed for compulsory accusation should not restrict or abrogate the right of minorities to establish and administer educational institution. So article 30, we all remember that all the minorities have right to establish and administer educational institutions. So this article 30 clause 1A was inserted by this 44th constitutional amendment, and it says that in case there is a compulsory accusation, the amount fixed, the manner of amount fixed should not restrict or abrogate the right provided under article 30. Then coming to article 31, it was actually deleted, as I said earlier, and so this article 31 word was also deleted in article 31A and 31C. Then coming to 77th constitutional amendment, article 16(4)(a) was inserted, which brought a change that reservation in promotion in government jobs, if SC and ST are not adequately represented. So reservation in promotion can also be given in the government jobs in case these community people are inadequately represented. So 16(4)(a) very important, 77th constitutional amendment. Then 81st constitutional amendment inserted article 16(4)(b) which added the carry forward rule for the ST and SC. Then 85th constitutional amendment, it brought the word consequential seniority in the article 16 subclause 4a. Okay. Then 86th constitutional amendment, article very important constitutional amendment, article 21a right to education and 45 in the DPSP and 51 1k in the fundamental duties were inserted. Then article 93rd constitutional amendment inserted 15 clause 5 which says that state shall have the power to make special provisions for SCBC, SC, ST in the educational institution. So if special provision is made for SC, BC, SC, ST, it is 15(4). Okay, which is brought by first constitutional amendment. So it is a general clause. In case it is particular to the educational institution, it is provided under 15(5). Under 93rd, brought under 93rd constitutional amendment. Then by the 97th constitutional amendment, word cooperative society was added in article 19 clause 1 subclause C. So earlier in clause C there were only forming of association and trade unions, but by this amendment cooperative society was added. Then the last amendment, 103rd constitutional amendment, which brought article 15 clause 6, 16 clause 6, which add that state shall bring special provision to EWS, that is economically weaker section, and by the 16 clause 6, 10% reservation for the EWS in education as well as employment. Education is provided under 15 clause 6 and employment is provided under 16 clause 6. So 10% reservation is provided, and the word and was added in article 19(1) clause E, because earlier this and word was in the 19 clause 1 clause F, but later it was repealed by this article this amendment, 44th constitutional amendment. Hence this add and word was later added to 19 clause 1 clause subclause E by the 103rd constitutional amendment. So now they will ask the question like, giving it in a match, they will ask 77th constitutional amendment, 81st constitutional amendment, 86th, 81st, and they will give the other side these articles. They will not ask, like they will not give these words. As far as I know, they will give the articles, then you have to match it, right? You have to match with the correct constitutional amendment. So you have to keep some clues on your own, or just memorize these articles and the constitutional amendments, so that you could get a 1 mark in case it comes in the examination. Thank you. Keep on supporting. Do share the video. I'll be posting more such short videos which will score you marks in the UGC point of view. Thank you.